I'd be shocked to see the New Orleans Saints go quarterback at number 9, but wouldn't be surprised if they still took one in the first round. We got all of that and a little bit of lagniappe for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? I am your host, your friend, Ross Jaxson, New Orleans native, your New Orleans Saints expert and credentialed member of the media covering those New Orleans Saints as a Saints beat writer over at LouisianaSports.net and Saints analyst with WWL TV. And on today's episode of Locked On Saints, getting depth players at the end of this year's draft could be the difference between winning and losing with your draft class. It's easy to get starters in the mid rounds. The New Orleans Saints just have to invest in the right places. And while I don't see the team going for a quarterback at number 9 overall, it doesn't rule them out from taking a quarterback in the first round altogether. We got that and much more for you on today's Mock Draft Monday episode of Locked On Saints as we enter draft week here in the NFL. We appreciate you very much, as always, for being here, whether it's your first time or your next time. We appreciate you being here this time, making us your first listen, and being an everydayer here on the show, which is a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by the Nissan Armada. Stay tuned for the 2025 Nissan Armada Player of the Week later on in today's episode. I don't see the New Orleans Saints taking a quarterback at number 9, but it doesn't mean that I don't see the New Orleans Saints taking a quarterback in this year's first round. We just did our 2025 Locked On NFL mock draft for this year, and I made 2 selections in the first round of that mock. I want to break those down in today's episode and then continue the draft from that point forward. So here's what I did. At pick number 9 overall, I took Tyler Warren, the Penn State tight end. I'm following my gut on this one when it comes to being predictive. I'm following my gut on it. I think that the Saints really like Tyler Warren. I think Tyler Warren can be somebody that immediately has a positive impact on this offense. My only real question is he actually still on the board when the New Orleans Saints select at 9? Or did the New York Jets take him at 7? Or does another team end up taking him earlier than we think? But when it comes to blue blood prospects in this year's draft, there's Abdul Carter, the edge rusher out of Penn State. There's Travis Hunter, the Colorado wide receiver / cornerback. There's Ashton Jeanty, the running back out of Boise State. And then there's Penn State tight end Tyler Warren. And then to some, including myself, Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. Whichever one of those guys is on the board at 9 is the guy that I'm taking. And in this instance, it was Tetairoa McMillan off the board at number 7. Mason Graham off the board at number 5. Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter off the board much earlier. So for me, Tyler Warren was the selection. Remember, this wasn't just some mock draft we ran off of some simulator. This was the Locked On NFL mock draft where all of the experts were selecting beforehand. And I had already made the agreement with myself that because I was being predictive, I don't see the Saints taking a quarterback at number 9. Here's the thing, though. The quarterback was already off the board as the Browns still took Shedeur Sanders, which I still think is possible. The Browns, the Giants, or the Raiders, I could still see one of them taking Shedeur Sanders off the board before the Saints even come up on the board at 9. And so I rolled with Tyler Warren at number 9. And then what I did was that I traded up with, in our mock draft, was actually the Los Angeles Rams, who had traded back with the Philadelphia Eagles. So I made a trade with them to get up to pick number 32. What I sent them was round 2, pick 40. And then I did round 3, pick 93, and then also got back in return 127, a draft pick in the draft. I'm doing it a little bit differently or in the 5th round of the draft. I'm doing this a little bit differently this time around to make it more akin to what actually happens in the draft. And so I'm going to the 2018 model of the Baltimore Ravens, who traded their 2nd round pick and their 4th round pick from that year in exchange, and a 2nd round pick for the next year in exchange for their 1st round pick, as well as a different 4th round pick. They just kind of swapped late round 4th and then gave up a future 2nd in order to move from the 2nd to the 1st. So I'm going to operate with that model for this, in which case I get 32 and pick 134 back. So I'm just kind of moving back a couple of spots in the 4th round, giving up a future 2nd, and then moving my 40 up to 32. Either case, totally fine. It's the same crop of players. So At pick 32, I went with Ole Miss quarterback Jaxson Dart. I think Tyler Shough could be the guy here. I think the Saints like Tyler Shough out of Louisville, but I think, again, I'm tracking where is the noise, right? Is the noise too loud anywhere? And right now, the rise of Tyler Shough feels an awful lot like the rise of Davis Mills a few years ago. And so I don't know that I'm fully buying in on it, but we'll see. I think the Saints are high on Tyler Shough. And so this could very well be him, but I'm going with Jaxson Dart just because of the similarities between Jaxson Dart and Jalen Hurts. That might be overplayed. That might not necessarily be what it is exactly that Kellen Moore wants to do. But I think taking Jaxson Dart from reading half of the field to having him read a full field is not something that he is going to have a humongous struggle with. And so this is me investing in a quarterback because I think that the Saints will invest in a quarterback. Tomorrow, I'm going to do another mock draft where I'm not investing in quarterback at all, which is my preferred route. I think just build around Spencer Rattler, go into 2025 with him if you don't have Derek Carr, and then you can revisit quarterback in 2026 because of how much you've built the roster in 2025. But we'll get to that tomorrow. So for me, the first round pairing of Tyler Warren and Tyler Warren out of Penn State, and then Ole Miss quarterback Jaxson Dart makes a lot of sense. It gives you your big body tight end to help your young quarterback. It gives you your young quarterback that's going to be your starter moving forward. If you want to, you can start Spencer Rattler in 2025 and then turn to Jaxson Dart later. If Derek Carr is somehow going to be ready for the 2025 season and he's not actually trying to push his way out, you can roll with him for a portion of 2025 and then turn things over to Jaxson Dart. You can give Jaxson Dart the time that he needs if you want to, or you can have him be your week one starter if you'd like. And then out of all of this, no matter who the quarterback is for New Orleans in 2025, you get this big-bodied pass catcher that can contribute from all over the field, out of the slot, out wide, in line, that is a big-time playmaker with the ball in his hands as well and gives you a big target to be able to throw to. And I'm usually anti-tight end in the first round, but I'm pro-Tyler Warren in the first round for certain. So that's the route that I went for this one. I think the Saints very well could go for a quarterback early. I just don't expect it to happen at pick 9. With this scenario that we're exploring, which is that they do go for a quarterback early, they just don't do it at pick 9. This is the way I think you get it done. You move up from the second round to the first round, and you grab a guy at the end of the first round. A part of it is about getting that kind of fifth-year option. The other part of it is getting ahead of the Cleveland Browns and the New York Giants, who, when they come back up on the board at the top of the second round, are not in, maybe they didn't take quarterbacks in the first round. They could swing for quarterbacks at that point. I expect that Shedeur Sanders will be off the board at 21 to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but if he's there at 32, then he could be the pick 2. A lot of different ways that you can go here, but this is the way that I would see New Orleans still investing in quarterback early if Kellen Moore wants to do so. If he sees his guy and says, I want that guy, the Saints should oblige and go and do that. This is what I think it could look like. Coming up next, even though we traded up from that second round, there's still a lot of opportunity to add even more starters to this roster in the third and fourth rounds. Let's get to that next as we continue on with this Mock Draft Monday episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Did you know that your Amazon Fire TV is also an Xbox? Yeah. All you need is that Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K and a compatible controller, and then you can launch Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included to get some fantastic titles and turn your TV into an entertainment hub that includes gaming, just like all those binge-worthy series that you love watching on your Amazon Fire TV Stick, including EA Sports College Football 25 and Call of Duty Black Ops 6. And it's great for mobile gaming too, because you don't need a console. You just need the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K, as well as a compatible controller, and you're all set. Head over to amazon.com/FireTV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and a compatible controller are required. Available on select devices, including the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K second gen, Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K Max first and second gen, and Amazon TV Cube third gen. All right, family, even if the New Orleans Saints were to try to advance their number 40 overall selection, it doesn't take them out of contention for additional starters in this year's draft. The third and fourth rounds are rich with talent, and here's how the New Orleans Saints could help to maximize some of that by simply making sure that they're investing their capital in the right areas. And I think a lot of this is skill position trenches. That's what you're looking for in these rounds, but we're going to also find a little bit of help over in the defensive side here too. So I want to start everything off with round 3, pick 71. Remember, we traded 40 to move up. So round 3, pick 71, I went with Utah State wide receiver Jalen Royals. This is a guy that I've been talking about for a while that I mentioned was going to be a fast riser in the NFL draft once he gets to testing and all these other things. He had some solid testing numbers. Looked good during the time that he was out there. 4.42 speed, and then added 36-inch vertical leaps, 10-foot 1-inch broad jump, and then some nice kind of short shuttle, 3-cone numbers as well when it came to his pro day. But this is a player that is coming off of a right foot injury that everyone believes is going to be just fine when it comes to all of it. Gives you good acceleration, gives you really solid route running, nice nifty footwork as well. Very comfortable playing both inside and out. 6 foot, 205 pounds, kind of feels AJ Brownish, because I think everybody thinks about AJ Brown as being this 6'2", 6'3" behemoth, and he's barely 6'1", but he plays above the rim in that way. And I think that's something that Jalen Royals does very well too. Plays bigger than he is, can make those 50-50 catches, but also really good with the ball in his hands in terms of going up, picking up some yards after catch, and the ability to play both inside and out kind of maximizes the versatility of having this physical receiver that can man up just about anywhere over on this offense. And so I really like a Jalen Royals at pick 71. I was between him and Trey Harris, but I wanted Trey Harris a little bit more just outside. I wanted somebody that could play inside as well, so that's why I went with Jalen Royals. But honestly, Trey Harris out of Ole Miss, just as good a selection, if you ask me. Round 3, pick 93, I went to Charles Grant. Not that Charles Grant, but the offensive lineman out of William and Mary. Charles Grant, to me, is somebody that can play both can play both tackle and guard. Really athletic player, coming in at 6'4", 311 pounds, able to run a 5.09 in his 40. So he's not sub 5 seconds, but he's in the really, really good and respectable place when it comes to that, and is incredibly fluid, incredibly athletic on the field. He's a watch the film guy. Our good friend Keith Sanchez from over at Locked On NFL Draft would call him a WTF guy, a watch the film guy. And you can see how quickly he's able to move with his feet, how well he moves laterally as well without tripping over himself or clogging up anything. Charles Grant, to me, is an offensive lineman that can come in from William & Mary and potentially immediately start for you at left guard. Now, I do think that there's a reason why they brought in Dylan Radins, who also has that athleticism, who works really well as a pulling guard, all those other pieces. I think that all of that is there. But here's one of my favorite things about Charles Grant. He used to wrestle. He used to be a wrestler. He's got a big-time wrestling background. And look, if there's, I think about like baseball players that played outfield being good safeties because of their ball tracking ability. I think about basketball players being good tight ends and wide receivers because of their ability to play above the rim. If I'm trying to think about something that I really like in an offensive lineman in terms of being a dual sport athlete, wrestling is probably up there. That's probably up there because I want you to be strong with your hands. I want you to be confident in hand fighting. I want you to be able to be that, especially in pass protection, but also have the movement ability and the nimble nature to be able to contribute to the run game. And I think that you get both of those things with Charles Grant, who can be in sort of that outside, inside versatile spot, but also can play in sort of that balanced offense that's looking to be both, man run scheme. So we need you to be strong, but also zone run scheme. So I need you to be able to move as well. And so I like a guy like Charles Grant and his ability to be able to contribute a little bit more balanced, versatile in terms of what he's able to contribute there. At round 4, pick 112, I'm going with Barron Sorrell coming out of Texas, New Orleans native, Holy Cross High School athlete. Keith Sanchez over at Locked On NFL Draft joined us over on the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show this week, and he spoke a little bit about Barron Sorrell as well as Braden Swinson being guys that would be on the New Orleans Saints radar because of Bo Davis, the defensive line coach for the New Orleans Saints. Bo Davis, he's a defensive line coach for the New Orleans Saints, but most recently he was with LSU. Before that, he was with Texas. So he knows these guys that are coming from Louisiana. He knows these guys that played at LSU, and he knows a guy like Barron Sorrell because he came from New Orleans, but also played at Texas while Bo Davis coached him. And so I do think that there's something there. He made the early freaks list with a 425-pound bench press, 575-pound squat, and 366-pound power clean. This dude does not lack for power and strength when it comes to the defensive side, but he's got good ability to be able to move as well. comes in at 6'3", 255-ish pounds, can be a stand-up guy over on the outside, playing wide 9, wide 7 in some cases, can be a guy with his hand in the dirt at wide 7, can be a guy with his hand in the dirt at heads up 4. So his ability to be able to move around in a bunch of different places on the defensive line makes him really, really scheme versatile in what would be a multi-front defense, which is exactly what I think you're going to see from Brandon Staley here in New Orleans. Yeah, there's going to be odd man fronts. Yeah, there's going to be a level of a 3-4 or 3-3-5 defense, but I think you're going to still see some of those even fronts. I think you're still going to see some of those hand in the dirt defensive linemen looking to contribute. And I think a guy like Baron Sorrell, who had 6 sacks last year, 11 tackles for a loss last year, his ability to contribute both as somebody that can operate and contribute in the pass rush game, but also help you out as a run stopper. That's going to be big for this New Orleans Saints defense that's looking to rebound from a 31st ranked run defense season. I think that's really, really important to consider in this situation. So a guy like Baron Sorrell, to me, would be able to come in and maybe develop comfortably and then work his way into a hotter, more contributing role over time, especially playing a premier position like that in these middle rounds where things are, the talent's really rich, and he's a big reason why. Let's go to round 4, pick what is now 134. Remember, we took a couple steps back with the Philadelphia Eagles here in this scenario. And so I rolled with Nohl Williams, the cornerback out of California. The Saints have former Cal coaching staff members on their defensive staff now coming up from the college ranks. And I think there's going to be a little bit of a connection here. 7 interceptions last year. Absolute ball hawk. Also has some kick return ability. He had an 80-yard kickoff return touchdown last season, as well as an interception that he returned for a touchdown. UNLV transfer, moving up to Cal, and was not afraid of the competition at all. Kind of falls in that same place of like the 4.5 range of speed. And so you kind of get a little bit worried about that, just like you are with a Will Johnson in the first round potentially. But at this point in the draft, if you can get somebody that has this man coverage ability, that can play in recovery mode pretty well, that tracks the ball extremely well, and that continues to produce these interceptions to get the ball back to your offense, I think you're willing to kind of gamble on the speed a little bit. 6 foot, 200 pounds, exactly what it is that you're looking for in a corner in today's NFL. And so I think a guy like Nohl Williams, to me, somebody maybe soaring under the radar a little bit, but could be a really, really outstanding guy, and also really solid run defender as well, which I think you're going to need in this Brandon Staley defense. And I think every NFL team absolutely loves corners that will come down and tackle and help out in your run game. So there you go, landing a potential 4 more starters there that could end up contributing to you almost immediately, even after moving up in that second round. Now we're going to start to fill out some depth and try to find other additional contributors in other areas of the game. Let's get to that, because that could be the difference between winning and losing this year's NFL draft. We got that coming up for you as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The Armada Player of the Week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, we're taking a look at draft prospects that stand apart, and I don't think there's any single draft prospect in this year's draft that stands apart for the New Orleans Saints at number 9 the way that Penn State tight end Tyler Warren does. As an anti-tight end in the first round guy, I am pro Tyler Warren in the first round at 6'5", 256 pounds. His ability to be able to create with the ball in his hands and be a big-time pass catcher, especially for the New Orleans Saints, who might be going the young quarterback route this year, is too hard to pass up. Then you develop him more as a route runner, develop him more as a blocker, and he becomes an every down contributor for your future at the position. It's clear that our player of the week, Tyler Warren, is ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, and you can do the same in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of their other outstanding vehicles. So take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go and find your next big adventure. Shop today at nissanusa.com. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. The difference between winning and losing in this year's NFL draft may come down to the depth players that you find over the course of time in this year's class. And there are 3 players that I think we can snag here in round 6 and round 7 to end up our final, or not our final, but our predictive mock draft here on the show. And round 6, pick 184, I went with Georgia offensive lineman Dylan Fairchild. Round 7, pick 248, I went with Colorado wide receiver Will Sheppard, bringing the Madisonville native back home to Louisiana. And then round 7, pick 254, I went with Notre Dame defensive tackle Riley Mills. Now, all three of these players have just as much potential of falling to these areas as they do to potentially go in round 5, in round 3. I mean, not round 3, but in round 4, in round 5. It just depends upon who falls in love with whom. But these are the types of players that are typically the good players that end up making it to this area because of how good and stacked each of their positions are. Wide receiver, very well populated. Interior offensive line, very well populated, especially in the middle rounds. Defensive tackle, very well populated, especially in the middle rounds. And so I think that the kind of drop off that you're seeing at other positions like tight end, at corner, at quarterback, at tackle, at edge rusher, all that is going to rush teams to take a bunch of runs on those players in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds, which is going to push some of these other really talented players at other more heavily populated starter caliber positions down, or classes, down into the 6th and 7th rounds. And I think that the Saints have the ability to potentially take advantage of that here. Here's how we did it. With Georgia offensive lineman Dylan Fairchild, I feel like you get a really good developmental offensive lineman at this point in the draft. I've said all draft process long that these interior offensive linemen for Georgia, take a swing at one of them, or for one of them. Don't take a swing at one of them. You will lose that fight. You look at a guy like Jared Wilson, Tate Ratledge, or Dylan Fairchild, all that offensive interior for Georgia. And I think if you pick up one of those, you're on your way to having a future starter. This is another guy that was on the freaks list this time, 440-pound bench. You also saw 570-pound squat, 370-pound power clean as well. And so adding him as this constantly fighting, heavy motor, big time frame guy, 6'5", 318 pounds. He can play in the middle for you right away, or along with Charles Grant, just develop, right? And he gives you another option in case you have injuries on the interior. You're going to have injuries there. It's something that this team has to be ready for. We're not adequately prepared for. Last year, we saw the middle of the roster get gutted. And so I think that this time what you're looking for is their ability to be able to keep guys out on the field. And this dude played all 28 games over the course of the past 2 seasons, started 24 of those 28 games, and has been just an absolute wrecking ball in the middle of an offense. And so I really, really like what we're seeing from Dylan Fairchild. And I think that he could be a good selection for New Orleans when it comes to this area in the draft. When you're trying to find that depth that can also turn into potential starters for you. Let's take a look now at the Ruston, Louisiana, Madisonville, Louisiana native, Will Sheppard, who I took in the 7th round. The projections for him kind of range between 7th round and being an undrafted free agent. But here's my thing. I don't think you let him get to undrafted free agency. Don't give him a chance to choose where he wants to go, although you'll be in good position if he does as a Louisiana native, right? You're in a good position if you're the New Orleans Saints in that case. The Saints sent Scott Tolzien, their quarterbacks coach, along with wide receiver coach Keith Williams, to Colorado's pro day. That always felt like that was more of a Will Sheppard scouting opportunity than it was, just as much as it was a Shedeur Sanders scouting opportunity. Last year, 48 receptions, 621 receiving yards, 6 receiving touchdowns, and just 2 drops. And so the thing that I'm gravitating towards right here is the way that he improved his drop numbers. Vanderbilt 2 years ago, 9 drops that season, along with 8 receiving touchdowns, gets to Colorado, cuts that drop number down to just 2. Despite being targeted a little bit more, kind of the workhorse of that Colorado offense, 6 receiving touchdowns. Didn't have a huge year in terms of receiving numbers, in terms of 621 receiving yards, but what he was able to do over the course of the last couple of years has been good. And so I think in the 7th round, that's absolutely where you're looking to get a guy like this that will be able to contribute from a bunch of different places. Here's the other thing that I really like about him on top of all that. So we went with the more agile, fleet of foot Jalen Royals earlier. Here's what you get with Will Sheppard. 6'2", 203 pounds, 10-inch hands, and you also get 4.59 speed. You get good vertical leaping ability as well at 38.5 inches, 10-foot 6-inch broad jump. So you got this guy that's able to go out there and be this contested catch guy for you. He doesn't have like the big time speed, but if he can run some slants, some ins, some digs, some outs, some, corner routes, things like that are able to kind of help you be able to move the ball down the field. That's what we always talk about, right? Can you average 4 yards per passing play? And a guy like Will Sheppard could potentially help you do that. He's a 7th round investment. He doesn't have to turn into anything. He might not make the roster for you, but if he does turn into something for you, you got a pretty big win here. Even if it's just a contributing possession receiver, they can also go out there and help you as a blocker potentially. I really, Will Sheppard makes a lot of sense for me. And he's a guy that, after visiting with Keith Williams, maybe sees the opportunity that could be there for him when it comes to the New Orleans Saints, and maybe picks him in undrafted free agency or is simply selected and is able to find his way here to New Orleans one way or another. And then to wrap us up here in the 7th round, I did go with Riley Mills, the defensive tackle coming out of Notre Dame. 6'5", 291 pounds at the combine, bulked up to 296 pounds at his pro day. So I like the rhythm there, showing you that he can put on that weight. I think at 6'5", you can get up to 300 pounds and still be very effective. Didn't do a ton in terms of like off-season testing and stuff like that. Left shoulder, right knee injury. So a late investment like this protects you against some of the potential injury history that could be there, but has played 26 straight games, played 26 games played 13 games in 2023, 13 games in 2024, but did miss the final 3 games with that knee injury last season. Team captain, we know that that's something that the New Orleans Saints absolutely love as well. 7.5 sacks last year, 8.5 tackles for a loss as well. Quick, but also powerful, knows how to use his hands, has a bully mentality. I like the way that he plays the game. He could be one of those guys in a late round that gets you what you're looking for in a potential earlier round defensive tackle. You just got to make sure that the health is there and that you can further develop him. So here, let's put a bow on it. This is what this looks like in a whole. Round 1, pick 9, Penn State tight end Tyler Warren. Round 1, pick 32, we got quarterback Jaxson Dart out of Ole Miss. That's after the trade up with the Philadelphia Eagles. Round 3, pick 71, Utah State wide receiver Jalen Royals. Round 3, pick 93, William and Mary offensive lineman Charles Grant. Get you a couple of potential starters right there. Barron Sorrell, somebody that comes in and is immediately able to help contribute to you over on your defensive line, comes in from Texas as an edge rusher to start off round 4. And we cap off round 4 with Cal cornerback Nohl Williams, who could potentially be a starter for you right off the bat. Round 6, pick 184, Dylan Fairchild. And then we round out in round 7 with Will Sheppard, the wide receiver out of Colorado, as well as Riley Mills, a Notre Dame defensive tackle. This entire draft class as a whole hits everything that the New Orleans Saints need, gives them a young quarterback. In tomorrow's mock draft, we're going to look at the same thing. How do we hit every need, but how do we pass on quarterback in the process? We'll have that for you on tomorrow's episode. Let me know what you think of this one, and then we'll see where things go. We're just days away from the NFL draft. I cannot wait to see what it is that the NFL does, and of course, specifically what the New Orleans Saints do, and we'll be here covering it all the way through. We appreciate you very much, as always, making us your first listen and for being here with us, making us a part of your day, part of your routine, for saying yes to me on the show. If you see me, please say hi. And if you need anything else around your New Orleans Saints in between these episodes, make sure you follow me on your favorite social media at Ross Jaxson, NOLA. Hit me up. Learn how the family's doing. Let me know how you living. Let me know how you momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation. I'll holla at you.